are listening to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Suns Show.
Hey there. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another live edition of the Suns Solar Panel. My name is Dave King, and I'm here with, as always, with Brendan, better known as Zona Hoops. How's it going, man?
Not bad, not bad. Happy Halloween and happy birthday to Devin Booker.
That's right. The man turns 20. He's old now, right?
Yeah, grizzled
25. Vet. Yeah. Now he's not going to make any of those under 25 lists anymore.
True. So
we'll
see how he'll never be the same.
So who all is left for those famous under 25 lists? You've got Landry Shamit and you've got Deandre Eden, and that's about it, right? Because everyone else is exactly in the 25 year.
Yeah, wow. Pretty much. And I keep forgetting Shamit is that young. It's crazy.
I know, right? Well, he's he's not going to make anyone's top 25 under 25 lists, but he is under 25 and in our rotation. So I had to throw his name out there. All right, folks, you are listening to the Solar Panel, watching, listening, however you're here. Solar Panel is always fresh, always free, and it's presented by the Basketball Podcast Network. This is our live weekly interactive show. For those of you doing this on YouTube, joining us on YouTube, please do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. That helps the algorithms and gets it to the top of people's feeds. And if you're listening to this on the audio version, make sure to leave us a rating. A 5-star review will always be read on the air, and we'll give you special props. So thank you so much. All right, let's get the show started, man. So what do you think? Has anything happened this week that's worth talking about, Brandon? In Suns world?
In the Suns world, just the panic that I kind of sense. I think it's a little bit over the top. You have to remember, like, 4 games in October is not as important as like 4 games in February. Just like, for example, how they look now, like no one's going to remember these games other than referencing back to it as like, you remember when this team struggled, like this team will be fine, health permitted. So this is just one of those stretches that, some bad luck and just a slow start, just kind of mixed in together. And yeah.
Yeah. I was worried about this team coming out of the gate because all last year, every media session, every chance for the past 18 months, Devin Booker, when asked, how you guys doing this? How you guys doing so well? He's like, I'm locked in. I'm so locked in. I'm just locked in. That was the biggest catchphrase. And I haven't heard him say it once this year. And not that he isn't locked in. It's just that it's not so top of mind, so screwed down focused that he can't think of anything else. It's no longer the case. And I'm not going to blame the Kardashian curse or anything like that because he was dating her all the way through the locked in. And if you can stay locked in with that, on the side, then nothing about today is any different than that was last year. So I just think there is a bit of a finals hangover. Chuck Stabar, C-Bucks Stabar in the chat says a finals hangover, and I totally agree. The players won't admit it, though. I asked Monty Williams about it earlier this week before the Wednesday game, and he said, guys are just as locked in as before. It's just that everyone's hurting a little bit. Everyone's still hurting from the finals loss, and they're just not talking about it much. They're trying to focusing on the games. He thinks everyone's just as focused as they ever have been. And I don't necessarily think that's true, but I understand. So Monty's trying to find their buttons too. I asked him in the last couple of years, you've said things like, we don't want these guys to get happy on the farm. We wanted to get the other side of hard. I mean, there were so many features about Monty using, we got to get to the other side of hard. So I asked him about that too. And he said, you know what I realized this summer is using those catchphrases, as corny as they are, it gives them a chance to catch on. And then all of a sudden the narrative is about me, Monty Williams, and not the players. And I want the focus to be on the players. So he's like, I'm not going to come up with a new catchphrase for this year because I don't want that to be the story. I want the players to be the story. So I thought that was interesting. What do you think about what do you think? Do you think that Monty Williams is having a problem focusing these guys, or do you think they're just trying too hard?
I think it's just a little bit of both, just in terms of, I don't blame Monty or anything. I think it's just the finals hangover and going from every single moment, like every possession is like the biggest thing in the world in the playoffs, like sold out crowds, just, all the hype that came with it. Going from that to like the beginning of the season so quick, I think the letdown is kind of easy to see coming, even though, yes, they have continuity and like they're familiar with each other. But there's also a lot of like integrating you have to do to start like a new season. So I think once they get rolling, they'll be fine. And we'll look back on this and just say it's just part of a season. It's a grind. And there's going to be another stretch like this at some point later on in the year as well. No team's perfect. So to me, again, I'm not worried or anything, but the schedule lightens up a lot these next 10 games or so. So they have to take advantage of that for sure. They can't, get happy on the farm, as Monty would say. And I know he doesn't want to use any more of those phrases, but I guarantee you he'll accidentally throw one in within the next,
it's in his
weeks.
nature, it's like kind of dad jokes. I mean, we can't stop doing it. At least somebody my age, I can't stop doing dad jokes. He can't stop coming up with catchphrases, but he doesn't want that to be the focus. He wants the players to be the focus. So, good for him. All right. So what our format is today, folks, of course, we have the 4 quarters of fun. We're going to break the show into 4 quarters. The first 2 quarters are going to be about player reviews. We're going to grade the players, talk about each player in depth on what they've done well and what they haven't, and team trends and things like that. So that I know it's only been 4 games, but 4 games, it's been, that this gives you an indication of what they're doing so far. A year ago, they were 3-1 at this point. And today they're 1-3. So we're going through that. Third quarter, we're going to get into baller talk. So whatever you guys come up with in the chat, we'll ask for questions you want us to answer and things like that. And then fourth quarter, we're going to preview the coming games, and including Cleveland on Saturday night and the games after that. So keep your questions in the chat, and we will address those in the third quarter. For now, we are going to get started with player grades. And even though I'm from the IT world, I always worry that I'm going to screw this up. So I'm going to try to share the screen here and select and share. And let's see if I've got this right. Yep. All right, everybody. We are going to go through our way too early player grades. Let's see. We are going to start first with the playmakers. So obviously these are the guys who have the ball in their hands most of the time. And what I wanted to show you guys, and Zona, let's talk about this, is the interesting names on the usage leaders so far this year versus and next to the assist leaders so far this year for the playmakers. What jumps out at you as far as the top usage leaders?
A lot jumps out at me. Alfred Payton and Javale Mcgee. That's a little bit too much Alfred Payton and Javale Mcgee. Kaminsky has not really played a lot, so that's kind of
only 2 games.
Yeah, and Payne also
1 game actually.
Injured.
He's only been in 1 game.
Yeah.
But what I thought was interesting, the reason I put Kaminsky. Okay, so for the folks listening, sorry, we got to do this more audio. I got to be Al McCoy at some points here. Usage leaders so far this year: Devin Booker, 31.6%. That's about par with his prior years. Then second is Cameron Payne at 28%. Alfred Payton is 27.9%. So the backup point guards, they've each played 2 games. Alfred Payton did not play in the games. Cameron Payne did. Cameron Payne pulled his ham. And so that now Alfred Payton's in there. They're playing basically the same usage rate. And then the next guy is Kaminsky. And guess what? Chris Paul comes in way down at 6th or 7th on the usage percent leaders at only 20% this year. So Chris Paul's trying to take a backseat, and it's not working very well. Monty did say to him in the last couple of days they need him to step up to get the team on track. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, the usage leaders are interesting so far. And the new guys, Hayden and Mcgee, are 3rd and 4th on the team. And right now, with Cameron Payne out, they're 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, the Mcgee thing is really the one that stands out the most. I think you can kind of notice it too. Seems like they're trying to run the offense through him sometimes, which, is a bold strategy. He's looked good in stretches where, like, offensively he's doing all the right things, but sometimes that kind of took them out of their rhythm a little bit. And I don't know. I just defensively too, he's had some tough games. So yeah, I'm not as high on McGee as I was initially, but I do think there's still something there. But yeah, I don't think these numbers are very sustainable for him and Payton as well. It's just kind of early season, just weird stats.
Yeah, C Buxtabar in the chat asks, what happened to Point Shamit?
Good question. What happened to Shamit in general? He's not shooting the ball. Him and Cam Johnson, I think, need to be a lot more aggressive. Every time they catch the ball, like in the 3-point range, I need them to just let it fly. Like those two guys need to start shooting more. I don't know. I think in general, this team just their identity is kind of lost right now. And once they find it, it'll click. But yeah.
Yeah, what I thought interesting is Shamit actually, we'll see later on here, he's actually shooting pretty well when he shoots this year. He's just not taking enough shots. And there's no Point Shamit. I'm not seeing any playmaking out of him so far. And maybe, again, that's just lack of direction. And Alfred Payton being Alfred Payton is a career starter in this league. So for him to come in as the backup, he's just naturally going to try to assert himself in these games. And I don't know that that's to the Suns' benefit. In the chat, Darth Voida asked us, can we talk about the Suns' crap free throw percentage? I don't want to talk about the free throw percentage because that's so up and down. The Suns are going to be fine. They're starting slow on free throws. The whole league is making okay. The whole league is low on free throw percent, which is really weird. But what the real story is that the league is low on free throws, period. And what's so funny is last year, the Suns were dead last in the league at free throws per game at under 20. Now the entire league average is under 20 because of the change of calls, which has gone way, way, way too far the other way. I saw James Harden get completely mauled last night in some of his go around Twitter, and the refs didn't call a foul because it was the old style, that they're trying not to call this year, but it's just ridiculous. If you're grabbing Harden's arms, it's a foul. So anyway, the free throws are way down across the league. And when the guys are getting to the line, they're not making them. So percentage is way down across the league. I'm not going to worry about percentage. What's interesting though, is that the Suns are actually mid pack on free throws and they're up from last year, even with the refs not calling as many. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not, but the reason I kind of did that sidebar was that Alfred Payton actually gets to the line and gets in the paint and takes close shots more so than some of the other guys on the team. And so he's been effective in that, but it hasn't really helped the offense hum. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point by John to bring up free throws because, 2 seasons ago, they broke the NBA record all time as a team in free throw percent at 83.4. And last year they actually matched that exact number, which is really weird. And the Clippers actually topped them and broke the Suns record the very next year. So yeah, I think they're going to be one of the best free throw shooting teams again. I don't see anything that's going to change that really. Unless maybe JaVale shoots too many. Because last year, obviously, they had Dario, who's a great free throw shooter.
That's part of the problem is JaVale's high usage rate is getting him to the line, and he's a bad free throw shooter.
Yeah, and last year they didn't really have any. So I think that could be one thing that drops it a little bit. But yeah, I'm not overly concerned with the free throw numbers yet. I think, just the law of averages, a lot of this stuff will balance out over the course of the year. But yeah.
Well, here's the K to the B in the chat says the Suns are going to be fine. Really? I've seen them play and damn, absolutely. They're not playing well right now. They're certainly, if they keep playing the way they're playing today, they're not fine. Okay. The reason I'm thinking they're fine for the course of the season is that this is almost exactly the same rotation that got to the finals last year and knows how to win games together. I think what's happening is that they're trying to integrate new guys. And Chris Paul's trying to take a early season backseat to let other guys shine. And, all these and they're trying new things on offense, like having Mikelle Bridges be more of an on-ball guy than he was last year. And that means a little bit less for Devin Booker and a little bit less for Chris Paul. And it's an experiment time right now. So I think what we're going to see starting Saturday night and going into these upcoming games is Monty Williams probably pulling the team back to tried and trues and putting the experiments on hold for a little while. I don't know how far you can go with that with Cameron Payne out as the backup. So Alfred Payton will still be the primary backup to Paul. We'll see though. I feel like, and they might, and you can't tell JaVale McGee not to be as engaged as he is. They just have to figure out ways in the second unit to involve more people. The problem with the second unit, and we're not even off our first slide here. We got like 20 slides. The problem with the second unit right now is it's so Alfred Payton and JaVale McGee heavy, and yet what happened to Cameron Johnson? What happened to Landry Shamit? We talked about him. That takes those guys away from what they do so well. Anyway, so this is our starting point. We're talking about playmakers first. We're going to go through each player one at a time. First guy we're going to talk about is Chris Paul. So Zona. I'm just going to, right now for our listeners, I'm going to go through last year. Chris Paul averaged 16.4 points per game, 8.9 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and almost a 56% effective field goal shooting percentage. He was second team All-NBA, fifth in the MVP votes. Really great year. This year, he's averaging only 12 points per game. That's 4 points less. He's averaging more assists because he's trying to get the other guys involved. But he's shooting like 43% effective field goal, 43%. Now, effective field goal rate, for people who don't know for sure, is that effective field goal rate factors in extra credit for three-pointers. So if you shoot 40% from the field, but if it's all three-pointers, you have a 60% effective field goal rate. And so that's because it's 50% extra credit. That's the way that stat works. Not everybody shoots all three-pointers. So, but someone like a Mikelle Bridges' effective field goal rate is going to be higher than someone who does a lot of mid-range shots and makes even at the same rate. So anyway, but Chris Paul being at 43% effective field goal rate when he's getting credit for the threes he's taken as extra credit shows you he's shooting really bad. What's your take on Chris Paul so far this year?
Yeah, it's been a rough start offensively. He's missing shots that he normally makes, and to me, that's like why I'm not too concerned with him, because I know that's going to balance out. He's getting good looks and just missing them, and I do think he needs to be a little more aggressive. Like whenever Booker's not peak Booker, they need Chris Paul to create more for himself and be a little more aggressive, I think, early on. And Booker's starting to like get into form a little bit these last couple of games, I think, but whenever Book's struggling, Chris Paul just needs to understand that he has to take over. And last year we kind of saw that at times. He started to figure that out. So yeah, to me, the biggest thing is he just needs to keep shooting and just get himself out of this funk. He's not going to, we know Chris Paul's not going to continue to shoot this poorly. So it's just one of those early season slumps. And, for all we know, he could drop a 25-point, 12-assist game today, and then all of a sudden his 5-game player grade looks a lot different. That's the funny part about these early season grades, is they could change so quick. So
yeah, and we're using grades, and we are going to grade each person, and I realize how early it is, but I think it's important when you're off to a 1-3 start after being a finals team to really identify who's doing well and who's not. That's why we're doing this today. Obviously, these grades are going to change. We hope they change, because they're all going to be pretty
better.
Yeah. So Chris Paul, the thing that really bothered me more than anything else I've seen this year is Chris Paul in the third quarter of the Wednesday night game against Sacramento Kings. He looked incredibly frustrated coming out of halftime. He didn't want to shoot any of the shots he took. He was 1 for 6 in the third quarter. I wrote about this afterwards on brightsideofthesun.com, where Zona and I both write. He was 1 for 6 in the third quarter alone, and he missed all of his bunnies, all of his close shots. I think it's because he really wanted Deandre Eden to get shots, like he wanted to feed Deandre Eden, and yet the Kings changed their defense at halftime a little bit to sag a little bit more into the paint to basically deter Eden from trying to roll. And Eden did exactly what they wanted him to do. He stopped rolling. Every single one of those plays, I look back at him, Chris Paul was doing his pick and roll thing. He was dragging, he was going into the mid range, and Eden after Eden setting the pick was supposed to roll, and he didn't even try to roll because God, of course it wasn't Bagley. Rashawn Holmes immediately dropped down in between in between Ayton and the rim. And so Ayton is not a lob threat. He's not JaVale McGee. He's not a dude who's going to yam on guys constantly by getting the ball over top of them. Plus, teams have shown already this year and last year that if they know a lob is coming, they can jump too and deflect the lob. And there was nothing about Rashawn Holmes' stance that showed he was off balance. The only time you can out jump a dude is if you can throw the ball at the top of the backboard and your guy can catch it and jam. Not many guys can do that. Or B, the defender is off balance and can't jump. Like in that famous Valley-oop last year where Ayton made the lob from Jay Crowder to win the game against the Clippers. They picked off Ivica Zubats enough to make him off balance so he couldn't jump with Ayton. Otherwise, he would have blocked that just like Ayton caught it. It's not that Ayton can't jump. It's just these guys can jump too, and they're really long. Anyway, so Ayton just gave up on rolls early in the third quarter because they were dropping back. What does that do? That opens up Chris Paul for mid-range because nobody's stopping him from shooting the mid-range, and he missed them all, and he didn't even want to shoot them for some reason. Like one time he threw one at the backboard. I think he was trying to draw a foul, and he didn't get the foul call. So what the Suns did last year, okay, so this is an Ayton thing. We're going to talk about Ayton a little bit later, but this is a thing. He gets all of his touches, most of his touches in the first half, and then the second half they start over-defending on Ayton, and that opens Chris Paul and Devin Booker for middies. And what they do is they make them. That's what they did all last year. They make those mazes. And so when you see Chris Paul and Devin Booker taking over in the second half, part of that is because Deandre Eden pulled the defense down into the paint so far that these guys are open at the free throw line. Chris Paul did not take advantage of that on Wednesday night. That bothered me. It looked like he was almost injured, but I don't think he was injured. So we'll see what happens with Chris Paul coming out in the upcoming games. But he had a really bad game.
Yeah, that third quarter was very rough. It was they just did not look like themselves at all, and just that's when Sacramento made their big push. And you know, if they played even semi-competent in that third, they're going to win that game. So just a really rough quarter, and Chris has to hit the middies. It's that simple.
Yeah, a couple of chatters are asking questions about this, and I'm just responding really quick. One team, let's see. Buckdog says even throwing Ayton a pass makes the defense work. Not going at him at all makes the defense strong. And you know what? That's true because the Suns. It's not we. Stop it, Dave. The Suns made Sacramento look better than they are on defense. They're terrible on defense, but Chris Paul allowed them to look okay because he didn't make them pay for dropping down and defending Ayton on the potential role. Ayton made them look better than they are because he didn't force the pass anyway. So the Suns basically gave them, and that's why Ayton said it was an unprofessional quarter. He literally said, he goes, we were unprofessional in that third quarter. And he was talking about himself a little bit, but he was also talking about the entire team. So, and then another guy asked, why don't they run post-ups for Ayton? Post-ups are pretty inefficient. They're really not that efficient. Chris Paul hitting a mid-range is much more efficient than Deandre Ayton doing a catch, dribble, turnaround. I'd rather have Chris Paul just shoot a 10-footer. And so would the Suns. So I think post play is old school. And the reason it's old school is because it doesn't generate as much points. And plus Ayton himself is not a good post up guy. He can do post ups every once in a while, but he's not a dude like Joel Embiid. You just put it in there every single time. It's not that kind of thing. Plus, then that just makes the defense focus on that, and they can stop that too.
Yeah. And I think the Kings just like that slight adjustment, throwing them that off is a little bit concerning. I think in the long run, though, it could be a good thing because they're going to look at the film on that. And I think other teams are going to try to use that as a blueprint on how to defend DeAndre, which is hilarious because the Kings are the last team you'd expect to be developing this genius game plan defensively because they don't really have the personnel for that. But I think they played it really well, and the Suns just looked confused and didn't know how to react. So if anything, this will be good for them to adjust in the long run.
All right, let's go to Devin Booker next. Devin Booker last year was actually kind of a down year from the year before, but it was still really, really good, and he made the All-Star team. 25.6 points per game, 4.3 assists, 4.2 rebounds, and 53% effective field goal percentage. This year he's only at 21 points per game, a little bit more assists at 5 and rebounds at 4.8. So he went from 25.44 to 21.55, but he's shooting only 45% on effective field goal percent. Again, you get extra credit for threes, and it should get you over 50%. So really it's just, it's interesting. What do you think about Devin Booker so far? Beyond the conditioning thing, I think it's pretty clear he came in out of shape. Is there anything else you're noticing about him besides just getting into shape?
No, I think it's just a typical slow start. We saw him start slow. Like we've seen him start slow a few times actually in his career, just early in the season. And this year, he looks like a guy that just came off a finals run, an Olympic run, having COVID, all that stuff kind of, accumulating over the offseason. It was very predictable that he'd come off a little bit slow. And I'm not really too concerned with anything. The last couple of games, he's looked a little bit more like himself in stretches, which is a good sign. And I think once he gets in like that mode, it's just going to be a stretch of like 15 to 20 games where he's just on a tear. And, hopefully it starts tonight against the Cavs team that they don't really have a ton of great perimeter defenders. They do have a lot of size inside though, so that could lead to him settling for more jumpers than you'd like. But yeah, overall, I think someone just needs to get that fire back. Like I'm just waiting for someone to like talk shit to him to get him like fired up, because that's when he's always at his best, is whenever he's angry. Yeah. So, and this team in general, it just seems like they kind of don't have that fire or, passion that they did last season. So I think a little scuffle would be good. Nothing malicious, but just something to get the team to like come together, especially for Booker, because whenever someone talks crap, he just goes off.
All right, let's do grades. Sorry about that, folks. Thank you for reminding me. This is a grading show. So go back to Chris Paul. Zona, what grade would you give Chris Paul so far this year?
I give him a C-. I think he's had, the Lakers game was very good, and you can't forget that. But, other than that, it's been pretty rough. So, given just the raw stats, it looks like he's, if you take out the field goal percent, the assists are impressive. But overall, I think, yeah, it's been pretty disappointing, and they're going to need more. And he would agree.
All right. Hold on here. All right, so now, Devin Booker. What grade would you give Devin Booker?
Right now, I'd probably give him a flat C. I think he has a lot more in the tank. It's just a slow start. Not as hard on him, just given the circumstances. So, yeah, these two guys can't be at C's. They need to be in the A to B range if this team wants to get where they're going to go, and I think they will get there.
In the chat, we've got a lot of grades all around for CP. We got a B in there from Darth Vader. We got a C from Phoenix Suns 22. We got a C- from C Bucks to Bar. We have a C+ from Coach Fallen Founder. One of our guest hosts over the summer. Hello, Coach. Steve Holler gives CP3 a D, I believe. So yeah, I think we've got grades all over the board. I would give Chris Paul a D. I'm going to give him a D. I think even he would give himself a D at this point. And some of that was intentional. He wanted to give the other guys some room to shine. He wanted to be able to coast a little bit. It's a long season. But the Suns can't live with that. Then Devin Booker. Now what you're saying, I'm sorry. Did you give a grade for Devin Booker?
Yeah, just a C.
You gave him a C. Devin Booker, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Devin Booker is about a C. He played better against the Kings. I really liked that point Book lineup in the fourth quarter, basically getting Book revved up and being a facilitator and all that. He had 31 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds in that game, and we kind of need some of that if CP3 is not going to be playing as well. So I thought Devin Booker was really bad first couple of games, and then he's gotten better and better. CP has not shown the getting better. So, all right, what's everyone else? We're seeing C's and B's and D's and all that for Booker as well. So, yeah, these guys.
As long as we don't see any A's in there.
Yeah. God, I don't think anybody
homers
would do that. Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, even homers, I think it's Homer to give either of these guys a B. because they just
Yeah.
haven't played very well. They just haven't. So anyway, so we're going to go C, D for each of these guys. Now let's go to Cameron Payne. He only played for 2 games so far this year. First 2 games of the year, and the Suns were 1-1 in those games. His numbers are kind of throw-out numbers, but he did. Oops, I got last year and this year backwards on the screen. Sorry about that, folks. This year, he's shooting only 32.1% effective field goal percentage, which means, again, you get extra credit for threes. It should be higher. What have you seen so far in those first 2 games? What did you see that you liked and didn't like about Cameron Payne?
I mean, he played the same way he always plays, just kind of like the theme of this team. He just couldn't make his shots. I think they're definitely missing his pace and scoring just these last couple of games, because he's always been that energy spark that kind of brings life to them whenever they're lifeless, like they were in the third quarter of that Kings game, for example. They could have really used that spark. So I think these last couple of games missing him, especially in a second of a back-to-back in Portland. And actually, you know what, can we just talk about the scheduling and how stupid it is? Like 3 games in 4 nights, and then these next 3 games we have 10 days separating them. So it's like, it's hard for a team in the beginning of the season to get in any rhythm whenever that's kind of what you're thrown into. I think they'd prefer just the 1 night on, 1 night off, like to get back in that flow of the NBA season. This has just been weird. I feel like just all the time to sit there and think about that Blazers game. Sometimes it could be a good thing to get your focus in like, the middle of the season, but this early in the year, I think it's just been really weird for them to find that consistency. And that, Payne's injury actually sort of came at a good time. Yeah. But it came at a decent time in terms of all the games all the days they have off these next 10 days. So that's one positive to look at through the Payne lens.
Yep. I agree. The one thing I wanted to point out with Cameron Payne is he came into the season trying to hit some floaters, because last year and the last few years of his career, he was only layups and threes, and he wanted to introduce the floater to keep the defenses off balance. And he hasn't been hitting these floaters, and that's why his effective field goal percentage down. He did only play the 2 games. He had a really good stretch against the Lakers that helped the Suns take that big lead over the Lakers before they just kind of coasted through the fourth quarter. So I think it's incomplete. I see some of our ballers are giving incompletes, but most of the grades are C- or so for Payne. And I think that's a good grade, a C-. He has not had a great start to the season. Now let's do his counterpart, Alfred Payton. Let's do Alfred Payton. Let's jump to Alfred Payton, because that's the equal and opposite. Alfred Payton has played the 2 games that Cameron Payne has not. And he's actually done pretty well statistically, Alfred Payton, last year with the Knicks as a starter for most of the season, playing about the same number of minutes, really. Last year, 10 minutes or 10 points per game, 3.2 assists, 3.4 rebounds, and 45% effective field goal rate. This year, 12 points per game. He's actually one of the top scorers on the Suns this year. I think he's still 4th or 5th at this point. 4 assists per game, 2.5 rebounds, and 55% effective field goal. What have you seen from Alfred that you like or don't like?
He's looked pretty good, honestly. I mean, obviously there's some times where he gets a little bit of tunnel vision or, could force some stuff. But for the most part, a 3rd string point guard coming in doing what he's done is a luxury to have. And I think you have to grade him through that lens. Like, he's not a starter anymore. So obviously, I think there's times where he was aggressive when he thought he needed to be offensively. And he actually had decent chemistry with Deandre Ayton that, like, I noticed in that last game, it seemed like he was trying to get him involved specifically, which is something that Payne struggles with a little bit, getting bigs involved. So that's a little bit of a different look. But in terms of like the pacing, I think he needs to like understand that they need to run in the second unit and get the shooters like Shamit and Cam Johnson more involved. But other than that, it just seems like you're nitpicking if you're looking too much into your 3rd string point guard like that. But overall, he's been a pleasant surprise, I think. And Knicks fans, I totally understand why they're down on him as a starter, but having this guy as your 3rd string is definitely a plus.
Yeah, my problem so far with Alfred Payton is that he's not really running the 0.5 offense that well.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime, obviously he's got the same usage rate. We showed that earlier in the show, same usage rate as Cameron Payne, but it just seems like he's just owning the ball more than
it's the Alfred Payton
Payne
offense,
does.
not the 0.5 offense.
Yeah. And you know what? When he does pass, it's to JaVale McGee. And so I guess I'm just a little underwhelmed. I'm not whelmed. I'm underwhelmed. And so while on the court, I would say, look, he's good. He's better than any third string point guard we've had in a long time. Great. Wonderful. For that, give him a B or whatever it is. But I think overall impact on the team, overall value to the team, I got to give him no better than a C or a D. What kind of grade would you give him, Zona?
Given his role, I'd give him like a B minus, just because I think he's done what you'd expect Alfred Payton to do, and maybe a little bit better. Like for me, it's like, okay, I have a question. Would you rather have E'Twaun Moore or Alfred Payton running this team right now?
By far, Alfred Payton. By far. That it's great. He's been that ready. But man, wait, Scott Lacey, but Davey wasn't ready for these minutes. Alfred Payton, career-long starter, he's more than ready for these minutes. He doesn't know the team well enough to be great in these minutes yet. I'll give you that part, Scott. But he's definitely ready for minutes.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The chemistry, I think, is something that isn't talked about enough. Like, he definitely needs some reps. So in the long run, it could be good for him to get these early reps. If they need him down the line for an extended stretch, hopefully not. But if they do, this could be a good way for him to get those reps. But with that comes growing pains.
It does come growing pains, that's for sure. Okay, so now let's do Landry Shamit. I put him in the playmakers group because that was what he was supposed to be, as a playmaker for the Suns. And again, playmakers are kind of a nebulous thing, but they're basically guys who are supposed to be on the ball decision makers, whether they pass, whether they shoot, whatever they do. It's that they're supposed to be a person who makes some decisions out there. Landry Shamit has done none of that. What do you think? Is it because Alfred Payton now is his running mate and Alfred Payton isn't looking at Shamit? Because Alfred Payton, I don't think he's had one kick out yet this year where he drives into the paint, which he does all the time, which is good. I mean, it puts pressure on the defense. And I'm talking about Payton here. He never kicks out for the three. I don't think I've seen him do it once. He'll kick to JaVale or something like that, or just take the shot. And that's hurt Landry a little bit, but he hasn't been on ball. Like, a lot of guys have brought the ball up, including Mikelle Bridges, but Landry has not. So do you think we were sold a bill of goods?
I think right now what Landry Shamit has is just like nice guy syndrome, where it's really common for like a role player on a new team to kind of, like you're walking on like thin ice or just trying to like make everyone happy and not being aggressive enough. He needs to be more aggressive and shoot the damn ball, because that's what they brought him in here to do. And, just moving off the ball, I feel like they haven't used him as well as like I'd like to see it, like even with that stuff. But yeah, on the on-ball stuff, I think that was just kind of like preseason hype. There's always something new every offseason where it's like, this guy's going to do this, or this guy added this to his game. And like the point Shamit stuff could still happen down the line, maybe in like whenever he's playing alongside Cam Payne or something. But yeah, I think it was mostly just smoke. Maybe they are high on him long-term in that, and they don't want to rush him into it. But yeah, also playing with Alfred Payton, who's been pretty ball dominant, as we've seen, takes away from that. So it's tough to really gauge that in 4 games. But so far, I haven't seen anything to lead me to believe, point Shamit will be a thing anytime soon.
Yeah, so he's probably not going to end up being a playmaker for the Suns, but he has been shooting pretty well. He's got a 73% effective field goal percent. And this is what I'm talking about, where you get extra credit for threes. Landry has actually made the shots he's taken. He just hasn't taken many shots this year.
Yep.
And he certainly hasn't been on ball to create the shots or get himself shots. But when he's taken them, he's been shooting pretty well. And in that regard, it kind of reminds me of rookie season Devin Booker. And look, please don't bring, you guys are going to bring this back on me. You're going to remind me. But what I mean by that is when Devin Booker first joined the Suns with Jeff Hornacek, the only thing he did was come in for short minutes. I'm talking October of his rookie year. He came in for short minutes, made 50, 60% of his threes and nothing else. and he'd never touch the ball, never handle the ball or anything like that. And we were like, wow, this guy can shoot. Oh, this is great. He's just like he was in Kentucky. And then, of course, all the injuries hit. The season tanked, and then Devin Booker became the man. I'm not suggesting this of Landry Shamit at all, because he's proven in 4 years in the league he's not the man. But he has been making shots in his limited role, so we got to give him some credit for that. So while I want to give him an F for overall impact, I'm going to raise that to like a C- grade, because at least he's made the shots he's been given to shoot.
Yeah, I can see that. And, YouTube thumbnail, Dave King compares Landry Shamit to Devin Booker. Ultimate clickbait. No, I'll say, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more harsh just because you brought him in here for a reason. He needs to shoot more. He's been shooting well, but he needs to be more involved. And part of that is I think the coaching staff's fault a little bit to not get him more involved. Him and Cam Johnson are just two of those guys that every time they shoot, it feels like it's going to go in. And I would just like to see him on more volume. So I'll go with a D+. Part of because of how he's playing, part of because how they're using him.
I like Sunderis's comment. It's more like, oh no, whoops, not that one. Stop it, people. It's this one. More like, damn it, not Shamit.
Pretty much every time he doesn't shoot.
Yeah, I'm still on the Frank part, but Frank hasn't played much this year. All right. So that, I think, takes us through the playmakers. Yeah. So we at this point are going to take a short break. It's halftime. We're going to take a short break, and you guys are going to get rewarded with me reading an ad from our sponsor. And I want you guys to pay attention, because it's really important to us that we make we get some sponsorship going on this show. So give us a couple of minutes here, and actually it's just 1 minute here, and I'm going to read our ad from Manscaped. Attention ballers, basketball is back. Ben Simmons has 76 problems this year, but you can have none with our friends over at Manscaped. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped to bring their front and backcourt polished, to keep their front and backcourt polished all year long. Trim with their new Lawnmower 4.0, which is included in the Performance Package 4.0. And watch the hair fade away. If you, as a baller, as someone who watches this show, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code FlamingBallers at manscaped.com. It's not raining threes, it's drizzling pubes. I am in love with the Performance Package 4.0 for Manscaped. Included is the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, formulations, and 2 free gifts. This package is the perfect package to really help you get your handle on the goods. Take 20% off. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping with the code FlamingBallers at manscaped.com. It's time you take care of your bricks this season. All right, there we go. Let's get back to the show. Everybody, get your orders in, man. You guys got to do that. All right. Now, we are going to go back to the show. We are now going to talk about the wings and the bigs. So the playmakers is a big part of Monty's system, but the wings and bigs obviously have a big role as well. So wings and bigs overall, I wanted to show you guys our effective field goal percentage leaders. From effective field goal percentage leaders, your wings and your bigs should be higher percentage because, again, they get credit for threes. They also get credit. I mean, obviously, you make more of your shots close to the rim. The average is around 55, 56, 57% at the rim. Your credit for three-pointers is around that too, if you make at least a 30 or threes. So you really should be a 55 or over if you're a wing or a big. But look at what the Suns have this year. Shamit is the leader at effective field goal percentage at 73.3. Then JaVale McGee, because he takes all of his shots up close. Mikelle Bridges, there's one of your wings, getting a 65.6, which is right about the same as last year. Deandre Eden should get credit. He's fourth at 59.2%. And then Alfred Payton at 55.6. Who are we not seeing on this list that we should be seeing if you get extra credit for threes?
I would like to see Cam Johnson on there. And I think Booker obviously is someone that could work his way up there as well. Deandre is not at his usual, ridiculous efficient self. So I think that'll continue to climb. And, Bridges is right about where he's always at. So nothing too crazy that's like stands out other than, Shamit, 73.3 is not going to be sustainable. It's a very small sample size, but yeah, I'd like to see Cam Johnson higher on this list for sure.
Yeah, I was really surprised that Cam Johnson has actually started out real slow these 4 games. Not only is he not getting very many shots, but he's also not making them like he was in preseason and playoffs and all that. So I think that's interesting. Okay, we're also talking about the bigs, the rebounding leaders. I find this interesting, but it isn't much different than last year. Hayden and his backup center are always going to be the rebounding leaders because the Suns play small at the forward spots. So Hayden has 11.3 rebounds this year per game. Javale Mcgee, he gets a lot of rebounds, 6.8. So he is going to, Javale Mcgee is a stats guy. In terms of productivity, he's going to put stuff on the board when he's in the game. Jay Crowder is 3rd at 5 rebounds a game. And then Devin Booker is 4th at 4.8 rebounds a game. What's another thing that jumps out at you that somebody – who else should have more than 4.8 rebounds per game on this team?
I don't think anyone, honestly. It looks pretty it looks about how I'd expect it to look.
I
I'd
would
like
say
to
if
see
Cam
Mikelle.
Johnson is playing some backup power forward, he should be getting more rebounds, and he's hardly rebounded anything this year.
Yeah, I think both him and Mikelle could do a little bit better on the boards just in terms of, they're both smart players in positioning and boxing out. I get they defend on the wing a lot, so they're probably on the perimeter a lot more than these guys, so it's more of a balanced rebounding attack. But those are 2 guys that I think need to get in there and mix it up a little bit more, because this team just needs to rebound as a team in general, especially if Ayton's not on the court. So, yeah, to me, it's just, they're very reliant on their centers, and everyone else is just kind of too small to put up anything crazy on that end.
So I've got to share this. I don't know how to handle it. I need Zona. I need you to comment on this too, because I'm just going to flame this guy. I love you, Thunderous Dunks. You're a great fan, really good supporter of the team. You really know what you're doing. But man, if you're suggesting Ricky Rubio is better than Chris Paul if he could only shoot a little bit better, and that everything else but shooting is better with Rubio, you're wrong, man. Chris Paul is a candidate.
Chris Paul is Ricky Rubio with a better shot. And then some. So,
but I think Chris Paul passes a little bit better, and he plays. I don't know. They are fairly similar, except for I'll get off my horse a little bit. They are fairly similar in all the other cases, but Chris Paul has won so many more games, and Ricky Rubio has not. And we're going to see Ricky Rubio tonight on Saturday night against Cleveland.
He's playing great to start the year.
He plays for Cleveland. He's coming off the bench and playing great, and good for him. But he's not Chris Paul, and I think we'll see it tonight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's one of those takes that later on in the year,
That's okay. I had that someone's going to remind me that I compared Shamit to Booker, and I really didn't, but I said the words. So, Sunderous, love you, man. You're a great supporter of the show and a great Suns fan. Okay, so let's get into the wings and the bigs a little bit one at a time. Mikelle Bridges. Mikelle Bridges has been the guy who has one of the few guys who's looked better this year than he did last year. Some of that is because he's on ball, and some of that is just because he's just playing really, really great. Last year, 13.5 points per game, 1.2 assists, 4.3 rebounds, 64% effective field goal rate. This year, 16.5 points per game, 16 from 13, so up 3 points a game. About the same assists, about the same rebounds, and about the same shooting, but 3 more points. Do you like seeing Mikelle Bridges? Okay, A, do you like seeing it? And then B, do you think the Suns are better because of it, with Mikelle Bridges being more on ball?
Yeah, I think they're going to need him to, honestly, because their on-ball creation's lacking. We saw it in the Bucks series especially. They just, outside of Booker and Paul, no one was able to create for themselves. So I think they're trying to mold him into that. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect right away, but this year we've already seen a little bit more aggression. Like the field goal attempt numbers for him have, gone up, which is important. Like confident Mikelle is like the best Mikelle. Even if he's missing shots, they need him to keep shooting. So, yeah, I've liked what I've seen. He's kind of the only guy that I think that's, like you mentioned, that's taking a step forward this year. He's being just as efficient as usual and still putting up 3+ points per game than last year. So overall, been very impressed with him. And if he can stay in this 16-point per game range, like even 15 points, like that's pretty solid incremental improvement.
I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, the chat is driving me nuts. I don't know if I got to stop looking at the chat, guys. You guys are great, but I mean, the Chris Paul erasure on here is incredible. Look, man, you can't say a dude who's 80% or 75% of another guy is just as good. He's not. Ricky Rubio has never led a team to a playoffs. Never. And Chris Paul has had teams deeper in the playoffs than they should have been several times in his career. I am so sick of watching you guys erase Chris Paul just because he has 4 bad games and a bad finals. Jesus.
Remember last year too, when they're 8-8, there was a lot of Suns fans that were questioning the fit. A lot of Suns fans.
When they were 8-8, yes, because guess what? He was producing Ricky Rubio results.
True.
But then when they go 43-13, did we hear Rubio again? No, because Chris Paul is much better player than Ricky Rubio, period.
Mic drop.
Good Lord, folks, your Chris Paul erasure is embarrassing to me today. Embarrassing. Jesus. All right, back to Mikelle Bridges. What kind of grade do you give Mikelle Bridges this year?
I give him a B+. He's very close to an A for me. This is kind of the improvement you have to make, though, when you're getting an extension like he got. So I won't give him too much kudos, but yeah, he's been by far like the only player that I think I've looked at and been impressed with, like in terms of like making improvements where he needs to.
Yeah, I got to give him like a A- so far. I think Mikelle has been great. He's been trying to embrace the role of being more of a facilitator, more of an on-ball guy, and that's really good. That's just the national media who constantly still talk about him as a 3-and-D guy are not watching close enough. Not only is he taking much more mid-range, which is not threes, and he gets to the rim in transition pretty well and on cuts and all that. He's not just 3-and-D, but he's also now facilitating a little bit, at least being a playmaker. He's not getting the great assists, but he is facilitating more than he has in terms of getting plays done, even if it's leading to his own shot, because Devin Booker's being face guarded or Chris Paul's being froze out by the defense and all that. You need Mikelle to be that third option. I think it's fun. So I'm just gonna give him like an A-, I think. What about you guys in the chat? Let's focus on Mikelle Bridges and see what kind of grades do you guys want to give Mikelle Bridges.
And look, I'm not comparing him to Kawhi Leonard, but look at, Kawhi's first 4 seasons, and they're very similar if Mikelle can keep up this production. That's all I'll say.
Kawhi Leonard.
I'm not comparing them. Just saying that the numbers are literally very.
Yeah, the numbers are very, very similar as far as the trajectory, right?
Yeah.
In their first 4 seasons, for sure.
Kawhi is OG Anunoby is like another example. So maybe somewhere in between those two is a good, middle ground.
Well, I hope he's better than OG because he's making a lot more money now.
Yeah. OG was on a steal of a contract, though. They picked the perfect time.
Well, OG has a little bit less of an offensive game, don't you think? I guess I haven't watched enough OG.
He's looked a lot better this year in terms of, he's sort of making that Mikelle leap. But, yeah, I think he's probably a little bit more advanced than Mikelle, obviously. But Mikelle has more upside, I would say, for sure.
Yeah. Boards, Chuck. C. Buxtabar. I always read it as Chuck, man. I think you want me to. Boards aren't getting Mikelle paid, though. Yep. That's an old Kawhi reference that I forget how he worded it, but he basically said
Boardman gets paid.
Boardman gets paid. That's it. That's
classic.
Yes. All right. So Mikelle, great job this year so far. You are our leader so far in the grade you're getting for the season. Now let's talk about Jay Crowder. I think Jay Crowder went 0 for 100 so far this year on threes. At least it feels like it. Wasn't it nice toward the end of the Sacramento game? He made 2 threes in that run where the Suns almost came back. They came back to tie the game. 2 of those threes, and Devin Booker either scored or assisted on 20 of the 22 points on the Suns' 22-10 run, 22-12 run to tie the game. Jay Crowder accounted for 6 of those 22 points with threes. Wasn't it nice seeing the ball actually go through the hoop for him?
Yeah, it was. As we know, there's two versions of Jay Crowder, the one that makes shots and the one that doesn't. But everything else will stay the same. He's going to play defense and play his ass off. So hopefully that was a sign of things to come for, the shot like falling towards the end of that game could carry over to these next few games because we need good Jay Crowder. And that comeback run they had against Sacramento, that was like the first time I felt like first moment that they looked like their old self. Like we saw flashes of like that, how dangerous they could be like when they go on those runs. So unfortunate it ended with that ridiculous shot by Barnes, but yeah, I think Crowder, hopefully they need to get him going somehow. I think he will. We've seen it's just a roller coaster ride with him.
Yeah, Crowder. I guess I'd have to give him I'd say a D. I mean, it's only better. That's about as good as it can get for me. I can't give him any better than a D. What he brings to the team is the little things. But you know what? The Suns' defense has been terrible this year. Crowder's part of that, and their offense has been terrible this year. Crowder's part of that. So I just think you can't give him any better than a D. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
we've gotten some grades in the comments. Sorry, Zona, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to echo that D grade. I think it's fair given what he's provided so far.
C Buck again, D today, B tomorrow, C the day after. Roller coaster, exactly. So we've got C's in there. We've got some D's. I really think it's been a tough start for Jay Crowder, but he will turn it around. He started, what series was it? Was it the
Lakers series? He was ice cold, and everyone was calling for Tori Craig to start over him and all this stuff. And then he ended up killing it towards the end of the series. So
Tori Craig last night for the Friday night for the Indiana Pacers. He had a great game. I think 22-8, 26-8, something like that. Is crazy.
Outscored Durant. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, he's the guy we let get away. That's for sure. Yep. Okay, so Jay Crowder, we're going to give him low grades this year. Cameron Johnson. Let's move on to Cam Johnson. Last year, 9.6 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 54% effective field goal. And then this year, 6 points per game, 1.5 rebounds per game, and 46% effective field goal. He just hasn't been good.
Yeah, and it's tough. Small sample size. You're on the bench, playing with a new point guard. So I get it, but they need more from him. And we were hoping that he'd take a little bit of a leap this year, and it's kind of been the opposite so far. So hopefully he can get back on track. Because they're going to need him to, especially if Crowder continues to struggle. Like he's kind of their, safety blanket there. So if they're both off, I mean, it just kind of shows these player grades. We're just going down the list, just kind of disappointed in everyone besides Mikelle. So it kind of makes sense given their 1-3 record. So just echoing the statement that he just needs to, show more.
Yeah, he's been in a funk. I think part of it is because of the tunnel vision of Alfred Payton in that unit. Part of it is Javale Mcgee wanting to finish everything every time he touches. Whereas Aiden, the great Monty Williams said it the other day. Deandre Eden is one of the most unselfish guys he's ever played with, because Aiden moves the ball around when he gets it and keeps that offense going. Whereas Javale Mcgee is all about
Dario
finishing.
last year.
Even Dario was great at moving the ball. They called him a connector. JaVale's not a connector. JaVale's a finisher. Alfred is not really a connector yet. And Cam Johnson's paying for it because he's just hanging out there. No one's giving him the ball and he doesn't take it, and he's not a ball handler. So he's just kind of doing nothing. Him and Landry Shamit are basically just mannequins out there on the wing, waiting for the shot that never comes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So yeah, we'll give him a D so far. That has not gone well for him. Dooley, downhill Dooley.
It's been very downhill.
Has he been better than an F? I mean, do we just want to just flat give him an F?
My grade for him will be Thad Young.
I can't give him any credit. He's been so bad.
Yeah, and he just doesn't fit what they like to do. He's very Oubre-like in the way that he drives, where he just gets tunnel vision sometimes, and it's frustrating because he's not finishing either. So he hasn't really done anything well, and Monty really likes him. So that's kind of, I don't think this is the last we'll see of him. For me, I'd rather just cut it down to a 9-man rotation than play him. But Monty seems pretty set on having
he
all
is
10
set.
guys.
I like these almost back-to-back comments. Thunderous Dunks gives him a G-. And then hello, Monty gives him an A+. Play sticks. So Thunderous Dunk says play sticks. Actually, Monty Williams said that because on Saturday night the Suns play Cleveland Cavaliers, who are also in a third game in 4 days, by the way, on the road. So we might, I don't know what we're going to get from Cleveland on Saturday night against the Suns, but they do play big. They play 3 almost 7-footers on their front line.
And have Kevin Love off the bench. So.
And they have Kevin Love off the bench. They play big, and Monty said that he might just have to play sticks. He actually admitted it.
I think if Sticks doesn't get minutes in this one, he's never going to, because this is like the one team that the Suns need to match some size with. And we've seen in the past they play like how other teams play instead of making teams adjust to them. So it wouldn't shock me if they even tried something with the starting lineup, like maybe starting Frank in the classic, like 5-minute stint where he just starts just to show face, or maybe even JaVale. I don't know, but Cleveland is huge, so that'll be something to watch.
It's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I like Thunderous Dunks saying he's Walmart Poppy. He ain't no Kelly. All right, so that's Abdel Nader. I think we've already spent more time on him than he deserves. Now let's talk about JaVale McGee. We've been talking about him throughout the entire show, so I don't know how much more we need to add. But every game is a JaVale McGee experience. I mean, every minute, every 2-minute stint, every 3-minute stint, every stint he's got is the full JaVale experience. Throwing that turnover into the backcourt for an easy transition for Sacramento right before halftime, I think it was in the Sacramento game. Rebounds, dunks, but then also turnovers and bad passes. And, oh, God, he spends more time on the floor than Anthony Davis. It's just an interesting experience seeing JaVale. What do you see from JaVale so far, Zona?
Yeah, there's a lot of good and also a lot of bad. You just kind of got to take both things for what it is.
Take the bad.
And yeah, I mean,
both, and there you have JaVale McGee. Yeah, go ahead.
Offensively, though, I do think there's times where like they need that rim pressure. So he's been good where it's like they need that, but then also it's like a little bit too much of him. So I think slowing it down a little bit. He needs to like just understand his role a little bit better instead of trying to do too much, and that'll come with time, hopefully. And defensively, there's some matchups I just don't like where he's guarding, small ball fives or whatever on the perimeter, like, or floor spacers, and he just can't do it. So that's something where I think matchup wise, they need another Tori Craig type that can come in and play against those smaller units. So I like JaVale in certain matchups, other matchups, no, thank you. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've posted some interesting comments on here. Dean St. Louis said the guys are all trying to do more this year, but the more isn't making the team better. True. C. Buck, again, he's on fire today. Nobody's accused JaVale of cat-like skills. The dude does not hit the landing. That's true. Cats always land on their feet. JaVale does not. Man, when he was with the Lakers in 2020, winning that championship, those two, they must have hit the floor a lot. I wonder if they ran into each other a lot too. All right. As far as facts of life, Thunderous Dunk says JaVale's a Blair. Yeah, that's probably true. Zona, you're probably not old enough for facts of life, but yeah, that was one of the big shows back in the day. Fallen Founder wants to give him a B. He was worried that JaVale was washed. JaVale looks a little washed. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. But effort. He gets an A for effort. We'll give him that. All right. Now down to our last guy, the most polarizing Phoenix Sun in many years. Like, I don't know if it's an ever thing. I've been a fan forever, but I haven't put a lot of thought into this. Deandre Eden, you either love him or you hate him. How do you think he's played so far this year?
Overall, a little bit worse than you'd like, but again, I think it's just more team oriented with him. They're not using him as effectively as you'd like, but there's also there's been times where he's just looked a little bit disengaged, which this whole team has looked disengaged at times, offensively especially. My biggest thing is just the ball movement, and it just hasn't looked natural like the Suns normally do, and that's usually where he could feast, whether it's cutting or dipping in the dunker spot, just sneaky ways to score. But their offense has just looked so bad, and his creation. There's been a few things where there's been flashes where I've been impressed, but he needs to continue to build off his 21-21 game where he was pretty dominant, and just keep crashing the glass, because that's where he's going to make his money. So yeah, I think it's been not as strong of a start as you'd like, but not as bad of a start as like a Chris Paul or Devin Booker in terms of expectations. So yeah, overall, he needs to get it together a little bit, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, he had a really bad start. You guys know I'm a big Ayton supporter. He had a really bad start to the season, really, really bad. 8-3 one game, 15-6, and then in that opener, 16-6, 15-6, something like that in the opener, and then 8-15 against the Lakers in that big win, and then 21-21 on Wednesday against Sacramento. And I don't think I've ever seen a more underhyped 2020 game than him against Sacramento. Part of that is because of the loss, but really that game was not his fault. Yet people are still going to blame him. I think it's really unfortunate. People say his energy is so bad. You know what? Tim Duncan never showed a ton of energy either, but it is what it is. People are not going to they're just not going to universally love Deandre Eden, and he's going to have to be okay with it. Code JJM, who is obviously on the other end of the spectrum from me on Ayton love, S for soft. That's the grade he's giving Ayton. The dude has I don't know. This is interesting because fans will give him a B because they like his last game, and skeptics will give him a D because they don't like his overall offensive game. I think man, I don't want to make this too shallow, but I think the Deandre Ayton skeptics are more interested in his facial expressions and how monstrous he goes for these dunks. And the Deandre Ayton supporters are the ones what's his overall impact to the game, regardless of those facial expressions and his how hard he tries. I mean, anyone who wants to give JaVale McGee a higher grade than Deandre Ayton is focusing on the wrong things, I think. But Zona, I'm open to you telling me differently.
Yeah, I think if he wants to be a max player, there needs to be more. That's what I've seen, just offensively, because he can't really create for himself consistently. That's the main thing for me. And they're not really putting him in position to do that either. So it just feels like he's kind of handcuffed a little bit in that sense. Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more aggression offensively, just, trying to get to the line, putting together those one or two power dribble moves where, he's forcing his way to the rim, basically. We just haven't seen that enough. But again, it's still very early. The early season duds are going to happen, but he needs to be closer to what he did against Sacramento on a consistent basis to be a max player. Not 2020 every night, obviously, but just in terms of impact.
Yeah. David Bailey is literally saying he sleepwalks through games. Okay. Has there ever been a 2020 sleepwalker? No. He doesn't sleepwalk through the games. He's the defensive anchor. It's tough. But anyway, we're not going to agree. I totally get it. We're not going to agree. I'm going to give Deandre Ayton a C for this season so far, maybe a C-. I am a Deandre Ayton supporter, and I still know he can do a lot better. What would you say is a grade for him, Zona?
Yeah, I give Booker a C, and I'm going to give Ayton a C as well, because just same thing. I know both of these guys can do a lot more. And I think once the offense clicks, it's going to unlock a lot of what they want to do for both those guys specifically, but also the role players. It'll kind of all fall in place. Hopefully, Cam Johnson especially. But yeah, overall, Ayton still has a long ways to go. Offensively, that's the main thing I'm looking at. We already know what he could do defensively. So yeah, I need to see more consistency on that end. And tonight will be a great test against a huge Cavs front line. and going against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, who Mobley's looked awesome. So that's going to be a great game.
All right. Well, that's been our player grades for the season so far. I realize it's early, but we wanted to talk about each of the players in depth to show what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. And grades are always an easy way to do it. It's just interesting. Let's do a quick recap of exactly where we are and where we're going. The Suns were 0-2 this past week, and they are now 1-3 on the season. And coming up now, you talked about them with the weird schedule, Zona. You said 3 games in 4 days and then 3 games in 10 days. Well, now they're back to the every other day schedule. They've got 4 more games at home coming up. That's every other day, basically Saturday. And then I think it's Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday again. So will the Suns get on track? Do you feel like they're going to get on track, or what's your biggest things you're going to be looking at, Zona, in the coming games, in the next couple of 3 games that they're playing?
Definitely the ball movement. Like, when's the last time we've seen one of those like 11 pass sequences that we saw like in the finals? And they just haven't looked like themselves in a lot of ways, but I'd say just sharing the ball and getting everyone engaged and just kind of like having fun. Like, when's the last time a player on their team like smiled? It just seems like they're all just, I don't know. They need that like loose energy, and that's kind of where I think they miss Payne a little bit in a sense. But they need to find their identity without him in that second unit, and overall just play with more of a purpose. And I think the scheduling is a little bit weird. It's tough to get back into a NBA season with how like they were scheduled. And the one game that they looked really well or played really well in was the Lakers game, where, you know, they had a day off in prep after a Denver game and, you know, got together. So I think getting back in the swing of things will, with every other day will help them for sure. And hopefully they can find or reestablish their identity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Saturday night against the Cavaliers, Tuesday against the Pelicans, who are without Zion right now, and they're pretty much a mess. If the Suns can't win that game, I think we have bigger problems than we think we do. Yeah. And then Thursday against the Rockets. Now, the great thing about the Cavaliers and the Rockets is you're going to see some great top draft picks. You're going to see Evan Mobley in the Saturday night game. People are saying Mobley is a better prospect, even at the high end of Deandre Eden. Mobley has higher ceiling, people say. So we'll see what that looks like out on the court on Saturday night. And then Thursday against the Rockets, you'll see Jaylen Green, and he has looked really good as a wing player. He was the second pick in the draft, and the Rockets have 4 first-round picks, 4 teenagers that they're playing on a regular basis, all teenagers. They're going to lose, but they're going to be interesting in their losses. So it'll be a fun week of games against young teams that don't really know how to win. The Suns should be able to win. They should be able to go 3-0. I hope they do. I don't know that they can, because they don't have their shit together well enough to do that. I'm not really sure. That's our show for today, folks. We really appreciate you coming to the show. Thank you for staying. It's been over an hour again. Zona, I hope you have a great Halloween weekend. Are you going to go out trick-or-treating at all, Zona?
No, not this year. Yeah, hopefully just the Suns will get a win tonight. And, you know, like you said, their schedule's pretty easy these next 3 games, so they got to capitalize. So looking forward to watching them against these young teams. Yeah.
So, gosh, I even my kids don't trick or treat anymore. Obviously, there's parties and stuff like that you go to all dressed up, but I sit outside.
I'll be doing a party, but nothing.
You'll
crazy.
be going to a party.
Yeah.
What are you going as?
Basic, just Jon Snow. Got like the Night's Watch like coat.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I haven't. I dressed up actually last year for the trial of Ryan McDonough on Solar Panel when we did that a couple of off seasons ago. I dressed up as the Joker, and that was my Halloween costume last time I went to a Halloween party, which was 2 Halloweens ago, because last year it was pandemic. That was fun. We went to one of those resorts and to a Halloween party. That was a blast. I don't think we're doing anything like that this year. This year, I'm just going to sit outside my sister's house on the driveway and watch the trick-or-treaters go by and hand out candy. Oh yeah. Coach Fallen Pounder, Dave's going to hand out Manscaped coupons. Okay, yeah. Would that be creepy as hell or what? I'm sitting there, this old guy sitting on the driveway handing out Manscaped coupons to 6-year-olds? I don't think so. Hey, give this to your dad. Give this to your dad. And if your dad won't take it, give it to your mom to give it to your dad. No, I think that would be way, 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 way too creepy.
Yeah, we're going to lose a sponsor doing that.
We're going to lose the sponsor. Actually, you know what? Manscaped would probably support it.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I should have told them. Okay, anyway. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. You have a great Halloween weekend, and hopefully next week we'll be talking about some Suns wins. Y'all have a good one.